Well, it's really hard for me to believe that we are finally in week 7, which means we are pretty much halfway through this semester. But we are, and I hope so far that you have learned a few things that you could use if you were going to start a greenhouse business. However, salesmanship is kind of the key if you're going to be in retail business because you have to be able to sell your product. And I understand that some people are just born as natural salesmen, but there are some tips that we can look at that will help any of us if we're going to be making a sale in a greenhouse. So let's get started with Chapter 3B. By definition, salesmanship is being able to masterfully persuade others to perform in such a way that satisfies your objective. So in our case, your ability to persuade someone to buy your greenhouse product. We are going to look at 6 steps of salesmanship. 1. Maintain and display a positive and enthusiastic attitude. 2. Acquire confidence through education. 3. Have definite objectives, both long and short term. 4. Understand the psychology of a customer and identify his or her needs. 5. Show ways that the customer's needs can be satisfied. And finally, close the sale. So let's look at the first point. First of all, you should maintain and display a positive and enthusiastic attitude. Experts agree that there is power of the mind. In other words, the things that happen in your life are probably the result of the type of attitude that you maintain. In other words, if you act excited about things, then excited things will probably happen to you. Or if you don't act excited, if you just think that life is doom and gloom, then probably things in your life are going to be doom and gloom because we resonate with those things. So when you sell a product, you need to know in your mind that you are going to be able to make that sale. Also keep in mind that you should smile whenever you're trying to make a sale. I know it seems awkward sometimes, but if you seem like you are a friendly person or you're an approachable person, it's more likely that the customer will purchase from you. Something that you might do in order to make better sales is to role play successful sales. Get someone to help you and walk through the steps of a successful sale. The reason for this is it'll help build your confidence and your self-esteem. A lot of times we don't approach things with confidence because we're unsure, but if you can go into a sale confident of what you're doing, it's more likely that you'll have a successful sale. Along with this, there are some thou shalt nots. You should always look neat. Do not look sloppy. People don't like to make purchases from people who are sloppy because it gives you the impression that, hey, maybe this person really didn't pay attention to the details and I'm not getting the best product. Also, while you're making a sale, do not smoke, eat, or chew gum. It's just bad customer service. You also should not have bad breath. You're going to be talking to the customer up close. Be sure that you keep some breath mints in your pocket, and that way they're not turned off by your breath. If you are selling to a person, if you're doing wholesale and you're selling to another company, be sure that you are not late for appointments. There's nothing worse than needing to talk to a salesman and then they're late, especially if you're a busy person. So as the salesman, make it your priority to be on time. And finally, don't forget materials. If you have any kind of promotional materials or price list, be sure that you take those things. Also take business cards, pen, paper. You never know what you might need to write down. I already mentioned this, but confidence really is the key to a good sale. You need to be sure that you acquire confidence through educating yourself to your product. Selling is easier when you know what you are selling. If you've ever watched a good salesman, you know that they make it look so easy, but it's because they know their product. Whenever someone asks you a question, be sure that you answer the question correctly. Don't just make up answers. No one wants to get the wrong information. And that leaves all of us kind of in a vulnerable situation, and it makes us a little bit scared that you may not know the answer, but that's okay. If you don't know the answer, you have some options. You can always go look up the answer in a manual or a reference guide, and if you're in a greenhouse business, you should keep those kind of references available, books about plants, or have maybe an iPad handy with information about your plants. But if you can't find it, then you want to ask someone else that you work with, a superior person. They may know the answer. Whenever you do that, be sure that if you take the customer to that person and you say, you know, I don't really know where these geraniums will grow. Could you help this customer? Stay around and listen to the answer. That way the next time that someone asks you that question, you'll know the answer and you won't have to seek help. Then finally, your answers should be short, precise, and extraneous. You don't want to add any extra information. So if you're selling ferns and someone says, will this grow on my porch? Of course you're going to ask, does your porch get sunlight? How often do you plan to water? But they don't need to know about where you put your ferns and how they grew last year and your grandmother's ferns. Just give them a clear, concise answer. The third key to good salesmanship is to have definite objectives, both long and short term. Short term will usually mean within a year. What do you plan to accomplish this year? How many sales do you want to make? Be sure that you write those objectives down. Review them and then update it as you need to. Long-term objectives are 3-4 years. What do you want to be doing in 3 or 4 years? Do you still want to be a salesman, or do you want to be moved up into management? Do you have a big goal for how many sales you want to make? Write those things down and then you can check them off whenever they're accomplished. Perhaps the hardest part about being a good salesman is the fourth step here. Understand the psychology of a customer. To do this, we need to look at the definition of a customer. A customer is the most important person in a business. They are not dependent on the business is dependent on them. They are not an interruption of the work, but the purpose of it. They do a favor to a business whenever they call. They are part of the business, not an outsider. They are not a cold statistic, but a flesh and blood human being with feelings and emotions. They're not someone to argue with or match wits with. They're a person who brings their wants to us. They deserve the most courteous and attentive treatment we can give them. They are the people who make it possible to pay our salaries. They are the lifeblood of every business. And they like the company whose employees actively support community affairs. So when we look at customers, you need to keep all of these things in mind. In doing that, you want to first greet the customer. Give them a nice, friendly hello. Smile as you say it, and just let them know that you've recognized they are there. You need to immediately ask if there's something that they need help with. If they say that they don't need your help, you don't have to just keep asking and asking. You can walk away, but don't leave the greenhouse and go to another greenhouse. Stay in close proximity so that if they decide they do need to ask a question, they can turn to you. Then listen to their concerns, their objectives, and their complaints. And when I say listen, I mean really listen. Look for what they are telling you. Look for what you can do to help. Don't just hear. Be sure that you're taking in what they say. And then finally, read their body language. Body language tells us a lot about what customers are feeling. If they're making frequent eye contact with you, or they're smiling at you, if you're sitting at a table and their legs are uncrossed or they lean forward to speak, they're probably into what you're trying to sell. However, if they have a blank expression on their face, they don't have a smile, maybe their arms are crossed or they're fiddling with something on your desk, then they're probably not interested in your product and they just want to leave. As you watch for these body languages and you listen to what they have to say, show ways that their needs can be satisfied. In other words, you want to make positive comments about what they're choosing. If someone's choosing a pink gloxinia, that may not be your favorite plant, but you can always make a comment like, you know, that's a nice plant you've picked out there. It helps build their confidence because a lot of people have hesitation when it comes to growing plants. You also want to avoid questions that could result in a no. So, for example, if a customer comes to you and they say, I would like to have something to put around my mailbox. It gets full sun and it's going to be able to get watered every day. You don't want to say, well, would you like a geranium? That leaves them with the ability just to say no and walk away. Instead, you want to make some suggestions such as, well, we do have some geraniums, but we also have some begonias. Both of those do well in the sun and have a nice red color. Which one would you prefer? At that point, they can't just say no. I guess they could say neither, but it's less likely, and it's more likely that you will make a sale. You also want to include suggestive selling. I know that everyone gets tired of suggestive selling when you go through the drive-thru. You pull up and they say, "Hello, welcome to thus and such restaurant. Would you like to try XYZ?" Or if you don't order a drink, they'll say at the end, "Would you like to add a drink with that?" And it is a little bit annoying. However, it does increase sales. So as customers are purchasing plants, you could say, "We also have fertilizer available. Would you like to purchase that today?" Or, "We also have water cans and hoses available that are on sale. Could I interest you in one of those?" When you realize that the sale is starting to come to a close, you want to start leading to that close. Don't just keep talking and talking and talking. Start leading the customer to the close. Whenever you make the close, you ask the customer for their decision. If you go back to the mailbox example we used earlier, you could say, "So have you decided on the geraniums or the begonias?" At this point, the customer can let you know what they have decided on, and you can help them in selecting that plant. You also collect payment here if they're going to pay on hand. After the close, be sure that you reaffirm what they bought. Tell them, "I think you made a good purchase today. I think you're going to be really happy with that." And always, always, always be sure to say thank you, because again, customers are the lifeblood of our businesses. As you work through this week's assignment, as always, you have a Chapter 3 handout. The assignment for this week is going to be a little bit different. I want to see you role play a successful sale. And by doing this, I want you to video yourself role playing this sale. If you're off campus and you want to send that video to me, you can upload it to YouTube, set it as a private link, and then share the link with me. If you're on campus and you don't want to put your video on YouTube, then you can bring it by my office and that's okay. In years past, I've had students who have videoed and saved the file and sent it to me. If you're going to do that, be sure you let me know, because a lot of those video files will not come through email. Also, one last thing, if you're going to ask someone else to help you role play, be sure that you tell them what you're using the video for and that you are going to send this to your teacher. I will not use these videos in future years, and I won't share them with anyone else. It's just for class purposes. If you have any questions about this assignment, be sure that you ask, and ask ahead of time. With that, I hope you have a good week 7, and I'll see you.